Well, hello, and welcome once again to 25 o'clock. I'm your host, Dan Drago. Thanks for joining me here on the show. Philadelphia's longest-running music podcast, I think. Great show this week. On the show, Dave Cope. Dave Cope of Dave Cope and the Sass, Davy Cope and English Breakfast, Le Bon, Fantasy Square Garden, and so many other projects. He came over, we talked for a long time, and then I took that super long and excellent talk and pared it down into something that you might be interested in listening to. That's the fun thing when you get two very music-minded guys, myself, and Dave is just a remarkable music mind. And he gets us in a room, and we just start talking. Like, I'd written down questions and things like that, and I got to them, but I just having such a great time talking music, talking songwriting. He's an excellent spirit and a super easy guy to talk to. So I was glad to get him on the show. I'll talk more about Dave in just a moment. But as always, if you're new to the show, old to the show, medium to the show, check out 25o'clockpod.com. That's our website. You can get anything and everything involving the show there. All the episodes for streaming and for downloading, including this one, 135 episodes. How about that? It's all on 25o'clockpod.com. Available for you for free. Check out the Friends and Neighbors page. That's where I link anyone and everyone who's ever been on the show. So if you hear a guest and you like what you hear and you want to do more, click on that Friends and Neighbors page and just lose yourself in the moment at 25o'clockpod.com. You can also find our mailing list, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those things. 25o'clockpod.com. Yes. You probably noticed today the episode dropped on a Monday instead of a Wednesday. I'm jumping the gun a little bit this week. I am currently in the ether. I'm out of town. I'm out of sorts, out of bounds, all those things. And I wanted to get this episode out earlier, first off, because today, the day that it drops, September 30th, is my birthday. I am 39 years old today. I'm recording this while I'm still 38, but by the time you hear this episode, I am 39 years old. And that is a lot of years old to me, to a lot of people, I'm sure. But yeah, I wanted to drop the episode on my birthday. It's my show, and I get to drop the episode on my birthday if I so feel it. And also next month marks 5 years of the podcast. I started this podcast, or I aired this first podcast in October of 2014. So it marks 5 years of the show, and that is also a lot of years to have a podcast. And as the month goes on, I will be making more reference and maybe even doing a couple of special things in celebration of 5 years of 25 o'clock. But anyway, let's talk about Dave Cope. You can get all his music or a lot of his music at davecope.bandcamp.com. There's just so much of it. I highly recommend you start with the Dave Cope samplers that he's kind of put in there. It's a really good way to get acclimated and familiarize yourself with the music of Dave Cope. So davecope.bandcamp.com. You can get his new record under the name Dave Cope and the Sass at sasskicksass.com. That's a great website. That's a great name. But the Dave Cope and the Sass LP is outstanding. We talk about it. It was recorded here in Philadelphia at Spice House Sound, which is up in the Northern Liberties of Philadelphia. Mixed by Alex Santilli, who's been a guest on the show. He was back on episode 84. Alex is a brilliant producer and just a brilliant mind. I love the dude. So after you're done listening to this episode, maybe give a listen to episode 84 with Alex Santilli. You can also check out music by Davy Cope and English Breakfast, Le Bon, Fantasy Square Garden. You can do this all at davecope.bandcamp.com. Dave's worked with people like Chuck Treese, David Ivory, Santa Gold, Eric Bazillion, Larry Gold, tons and tons of great talents. He is no slouch. And for proof of that, here, let's just get to it. Let's get to my conversation with Dave Cope here on 25 o'clock.
It's hard. I mean, it's so much easier now with Pro Tools and stuff. I mean, you can just cut and paste. You can make yourself sound like the best singer in the world with like a little bit of cutting and pasting.
Did you ever work with tape ever? Like
Yeah.
It's I found when
It's better. Performances are better when you do that.
Yeah, it's psychologically the clock is ticking and the money is ticking.
Yeah, and you got to get it right.
Yeah.
And,
or everyone like prepares beforehand.
Yeah,
like, rehearse.
Or you do like a bunch of takes,
Yeah,
and it's hard as a singer to do that because your voice eventually gets tired.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's
that sweet spot though too.
Sometimes when you sing a lot, then your voice becomes really, really good. That doesn't happen so much to me anymore. But when I was younger and I'd play a gig and I'd be like a 3-hour gig. By the end, I could sing really high and clear. And everything.
Yeah, it's a muscle. Yeah, you warmed it up, you moved it around. Yeah. And then it's like, show's over. You're like, but I'm good now.
Exactly. And that's when you go record. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe.
Yeah. But anyway.
Well, the music business, we could talk for hours. I could tell you stories.
I'm sure you've made. I just going through the works that are available digitally of yours, just a massive amount of it. I certainly didn't get to all of it.
Neither did I. I put stuff out without even knowing I did it.
Oh, God. Yeah. I was looking at some of these EPs. I'm like, he can't even be aware that half of this stuff exists. I mean, I imagine you curate your own Bandcamp, but...
I do. I mean, a lot to actually, I think I may have to pare it down a little bit. I've already done a little bit of that, but sometimes it's gotten to a point now where I was so bad at archiving older recordings that Bandcamp is the only place I have now where they're safely saved. Like old computers have died and things like that.
I like the samplers that you made too. Like periodically as you go through that discography, because there's got to be like 30 releases in there. There's 35 releases, I think.
There are quite a few.
And you've got periodically you've got these Dave Cope samplers, and those are the ones I was kind of clicking on and just letting go because I was like, oh good, I was like, this is just sort of a little bit of everything kind of surrounding this little thing right here, because there's just so much of it, and it's everything that I listened to, I was just like, no, this is quality. And at times it got sort of infuriating. I'm like, no, this one's quality too. Damn it, is any of this not going to be quality?
Well, that makes my life, it validates all the pain I've gone through in my
good,
life. So
good.
That's good.
Yeah. But now it's just there on the internet. I paid no money for it. So
No, I know. It's there. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the price you got to pay. I didn't, I mean, if I'd known, well, the thing is, if I had known getting into this world when I was a teenager, sort of starting out, I still would have probably ended up doing it, but it's not an easy job.
No,
it's not an easy
not
life.
At all.
There's the Debussy quote: "It's a great life, but a crummy job." It's true. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm going to internalize that. Yeah,
it's
I think
wonderful.
you can say that about a lot of things, not just art, but like I think any pursuit that you're as passionate about. Yeah, it's a great life, but the day-to-day can just really suck. Because anytime you turn something you love into the day-to-day, it can't be, as the Tragically Hip say, it can't be Nashville every night.
No, it can't be. And it can't be... I mean, there's another... If we're doing more quotes here, there's the old Leo Tolstoy quote, like, if you give people a utopia, the first thing they'll do is try and break it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I think there is something to be said for that. Like I've noticed when things have been going well for me, my mind will find something else that's wrong and obsess on that.
Oh yeah, especially when working on recordings and stuff like that, you can drive yourself crazy.
That's what makes for a good sort of production ear too, though. That mind, if you're not doing a recording, that's when it gets negative. Then you start thinking like, oh, what's this? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Is that black mold in my bathtub? And am I breathing? Whatever it is, you're some neurotic thing. But that neurotic thing is when you harness it, can probably be a good thing too. I mean, and also it actually works with songwriting too, or any kind of you put something away. You record it, maybe you record a little demo version of it, and you go back to it 2 weeks later. Sometimes I will have done something and then sort of been really psyched about it for a while and then sort of forgotten about it for years.
Yeah.
You go back to it and you hear it just comes on, maybe you're playing something else and it comes on a playlist, and you hear parts of it that are good, and then other parts you're like, that's really not good. And I know because it's not like I wrote it anymore. It's like
you can just kind of have that sort of detached observation to it. Yeah. I keep it all digitally and then periodically run through it. Just be like, all right, because I'm an eraser. Like I will erase.
Yeah, I've done that a lot too. I mean, depending on like the mood I'm in or what I've done, I have done that too. And nowadays, It really is important to keep track of all of it, just in a detached way, and with, especially because if the pressure is on and you have to make something, you have a deadline, or you have to put another song on an album, there's a time and place for going back and really nitpicking and doing it, but some part of the fun can just be letting it out, and sometimes you'll have a song idea or a lyric that works with a melody that's really kind of cool, right? And then you realize, you play it for some friends, like, we don't like that lyric, and then you realize eventually, oh, you're right, the lyric's not good, but the melody, so you have that melody 5 years later, whatever it is, and you can do that then.
Yeah. I'm curious at times. Part of the reason that I'm an eraser, it's not even out of like, I'm not like angry when I erase it. I'm just like, I can't simply hold in my brain the fact that all of this exists sometimes. And so I'm just like, I have to get rid of it. And once I get rid of it, it doesn't exist anymore.
But that's a very deep allegory for that's a very deep allegory for the songwriting thing too. Because on that Bandcamp stuff, there's some stuff that's mediocre probably that I thought was good at one time, so you have this whole experience there, and I don't know if I want to give people that experience necessarily, Maybe I want to put everything that just is what I think is great on there, but there's something also nice about it too,
it's great that it's there, and it's great that someone who wants to, like pick and choose or go through it all, a song at a time. You never do know what is going to resonate with people. I've written tunes and even performed them in solo sets that in my head being like, well, this isn't the 4 spot, it's not my strongest, I don't love it, but hey, I got to fill 45 minutes and this will work. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
And then people come up and be like, that song was fantastic. And like, you have to bite back the ears to be like, really? That one?
I know.
You just smile and just like, oh man, thanks.
There's one of those on this new album actually. That's like that people get goosebumps from this song, apparently, and I can't understand it.
It's not the first one, is it?
No, it's not the first.
Okay, I say because you've got that big soaring vocal opening right there, which is just on the Sass record, which is outstanding.
No, it's not. I won't say which one it is.
Well, no, you should never.
but it's one that I did not expect, and hearing it, maybe in a few years I'll hear it and I'll have totally have a changed view of it because it's not as close to me anymore. But that's always an interesting thing.
The thing that's going to resonate with other people.
It's interesting, and it's strange, and you can't really you can't predict it necessarily. I mean, I like to think that if I like something a lot, that means something to someone else, but you don't really know.
Yeah. You're from around here, right? You're Philly born and bred.
Yep, from Philly. Yep. From the Northwest, Chestnut Hill, Mount Airy area. Yeah.
And I always ask this of just about anyone who comes in is to talk a little bit about your real early experiences with music, like the things that start to form you and start to like just send you in the direction of not just as a music appreciator, because I think a lot of us, just like music, but like not just like it, but you like it.
I have had a great love of music for a long time, but funnily enough, I actually started out when I was very young. I wanted to be a visual artist. I was very, very intrigued with drawing all the time, and I'd draw these sort of battle scenes, and sometimes while I was drawing them, I would make arrows fly, like sort of a live action drawing kind of thing, and that became kind of transferred into music when I was around 10 or 11. I had been singing. I sang in a church choir. My mom was also a singer in the choir, so she dragged my sister and I along. So that was probably some of my first experiences with music. Actually, no, I will tell you. I remember my first real memories of music are hearing. What year was it? It must have been the early 80s, and it was Human League's Fascination, Keep Feeling, that song, and Rod Stewart's Infatuation. Those two songs I remember hearing. It was a summertime vacation. I think it was down the shore, and I heard those two songs. I remember not only feeling a real connection with them, but then also feeling almost a prescient sense of sadness. Like this is where my life is going to go, and it's going to be painful.
It's funny too when you think of those songs. Like, I mean, I've done this too when other people have asked me, and I always thought, like, what's the first piece of pop music I ever really just remembered? Like, not, and it's always just something completely mundane. You got Human League, which is pretty good right there, although the Rod Stewart. Mine is probably The Heat Is On.
Oh, that's good too.
Because that saxophone, that hook right there. And when you're like 5, like, you're just like,
no,
and the
great.
drums are, and like Pointer Sisters, but them on like the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack.
Yes. Neutron Dance, automatic. Oh, Nasty Girl by Vanity 6.
Yes,
that was in Beverly Hills Cop. I remember seeing that movie. Probably too young to see it.
Yep.
But hearing that song, and it always stuck with me. That song, I remember. Yes, Owner of a Lonely Heart. I remember that one. And I had an Uptown Girl by Billy Joel. I have these memories.
Billy Joel house too.
But they are strong. They're strong imprints in my brain.
And it's just pop music. At this age where it's like you haven't developed taste yet, which is both, unfortunate, but also great.
It's great.
Because everything's great.
Everything's great.
That's why you buy like MC Hammer cassettes when you're 9 or 10 years old. Because it's big, it's on the radio, and it's,
Yep.
It's sound.
I was definitely one of those with the MC Hammer tape.
Yep, I had that. I had the first Vanilla Ice album on tape because again, it was on the radio. That record is not appropriate for children at all. And even at the time, I was whatever age I was when that record came out, I was just like, he is singing about sex, and I don't know what that is, but I know I'm probably not supposed to be listening to it.
I mean, he was the tip of the iceberg, as it were. I mean, he was fairly tame compared to some other things.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was really a time when people were pushing the limits of what you can say. I mean, that's the whole in the beginning of the explicit kind of content.
I remember same era too. CNC Music Factory was like massive. That was big. The sound was huge.
And
Duran Duran on the radio and all that, and like just. Well, when were you first starting to write your own songs?
It wasn't till a little bit later. So an addendum to that about the first listening. The first time I really got psyched about making music was when my aunt gave me a couple cassette copies of the Beatles, like Rubber Soul and Sgt. Pepper. And I didn't like Rubber Soul at all at first, but I loved Sgt. Pepper at first. And then I learned to love Rubber Soul, and I realized later on that it was really incredible.
Yeah.
But they were also like it was like the American version. It didn't have Nowhere Man on it. It started with like It's Only Love or something. That was the first song.
It's kind of all out of order.
Yeah, it was weird. But so at that time, then I think my grandfather had a guitar, and I started learning chords on that, and then that guitar snapped in half.
Oh dear.
And broke. So I went and I was able to get another guitar, it's called an Oscar Schmidt, very simple kind of basic guitar.
Yeah.
And I started learning Beatles songs, basically. And then I think my ears started developing a little bit. And I started playing in a band when I was about 14, I think. And the band was called Requiem. We weren't a heavy metal band, though, although it sounds like kind of like a Swedish...
One-word bands now would be like, you'd think that's a very heavy, or at least some sort of like doom...
Especially like Requiem. It's like a very,
I can imagine just a very jagged font that would make it nearly impossible for me to tell what the name of your band is, which is often the trope with metal band fonts.
Yeah, or a medieval Gothic font. Exactly. But so we were playing then, and a friend of mine actually was like, well, why don't you write your own songs? And in the beginning, I was like, I just want to cover songs. I don't really feel like writing. And then maybe a year or so later, I started writing songs, and I didn't really know how. And
I don't think anybody does.
and it shows. And it shows on those early songs. But
I think you're just trying to get it done. I think so much for the first few years that you're writing tunes, it's just simply completing things, having verses and choruses that start and end. You're just like, all right, I think that's a song based on all the data I have.
That's exactly right. I mean, and to think about it back then, sort of, nowadays it's more about the inspiration to really do something. But if you want, you can sort of, it's like a tool, it's a muscle. If you want, you create a verse, you create a chorus. It's usually 8 bars. These little things you pick up along the way that sort of make sense. You don't have to follow those rules. But there are rules where nowadays I could maybe write a song fairly quickly. But back then it was like. It's like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do here? What's the next chord? What's the next melody? What do I do?
I think so often at that age too, you think that you have to accomplish it in a sitting.
Exactly.
Which is something, when you realize that is no longer true, or it doesn't have to be true. Some people can just knock it out every time they sit down, or not, but they if they don't complete it in that sitting, then it's considered it's a wash. But I think for me, and probably for you too, when you realize like, oh, I don't have to have it all right now. I can have a piece, and as long as I get it down, maybe like we were saying before, like maybe later, a year, a month, however much later, this piece can come into play again. You don't have to sit down and create the whole thing. Doesn't have to just fall out of your skull. I think learning that is an incredibly freeing thing. You're just like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, it is very relaxing to know that. Yeah, and that's another thing is that sometimes back that idea of getting it done quickly, you force things that shouldn't be there necessarily, and then it takes like 5 years later you realize, oh, I should have just left it alone as it was.
Yes, it's with so many things, you're just like, what if I didn't mess with it?
Yeah, that bridge about the lobster bisque, it probably shouldn't have put that in there. It should have put something else. Yeah, exactly.
You went to school for music?
Well, I went to college in Connecticut, and I majored in music there. I went there because I knew it was a good music program, and I went there also because I knew they had a good world music program.
Yeah, you've I couldn't find a lot of recordings on this. Maybe I wasn't looking in the right place, but I know you studied sort of a South Indian classical tradition, which I know zero things about, so that's fun.
Yeah, no, I could tell you a little bit about it. It's the kind of thing it would take a lifetime to even get mediocre at. Yeah. For someone like me who wasn't born into the world of classical Indian music, but I learned some things, and I was very lucky to have studied with a professor there who was an incredible classical musician, and his name was Tanjore Vishwanathan, and he came from a musical family that their lineage goes back hundreds of years to like the courts of South India. Wow! And his sister was like the big proponent of South Indian dance to the entire world. Like she was, and they would I think I think they were connected with Ravi Shankar. The Ravi Shankar is Northern Indian music, but I think they did shows together a long time ago, and so I learned singing from Vishwa is what we called him, and it was an incredible experience. I mean, he was an incredible teacher, incredibly kind. Everyone kind of got an A in the class, even though we were not even though you didn't know what very good. Doing. We didn't know what we were doing, and but
he was just happy you guys were trying.
Yeah, no, he was a kind. Good-hearted soul. Yeah.
It's just so interesting to have access and influence of that, or kind of early in your more higher-minded musical life, is just that had to have sort of set you in a direction, even though you're obviously not a composer in the style of South Indian classical music, but you've taken a lot of that, I'm sure, with you that finds its way into writing Beatlesque pop songs, or even writing like Laban stuff, which is
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that it's done is with Indian music, there's a drone. The harmony is not a restless harmony like Western harmony. You have a starting point, an ending point. You kind of have a journey of harmonic movement. And in Indian music, there's a drone going on, so you have that solid bass the whole time. And what that's taught me in some ways is, certain songs, you can have that drone for a little while, in a simple kind of progression or whatever, and then you can move to another place where that drone or that mode still exists. So you can kind of take some things from that. But the thing about Indian music is the melody and the rhythm is so advanced and so ornate. That doesn't necessarily translate as well to harmony either. But
and they're working with just more note. They're just dealing with more tones.
There are like quarter tones sometimes, and a lot of the oscillations between notes. So you'd have actually what's interesting is that Vishwa would write down. He was the first person to write down a lot of these old tunes that he learned through oral tradition for hundreds of years. This style was taught from teacher to student, but he would write it down in a way that with initials. So it's it's like a Western scale, do re mi, but it's sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, and with a single. I mean, I'll give you an example. So you'd have a certain raga or scale form. You'd have three notes. It would be written like sa re ga re sa. But the way the raga goes and the way the ornamentation goes, it'd be sa re ga re sa. So all that oscillation is going on in there. Now, that's that's a beautiful thing, and to take some of that into melodies. I wish I could do more of it, honestly. I mean, I wish if I could figure that out, I would be a very happy man artistically to try and translate more of that style. I've done it occasionally. There's a couple songs that I've done that with. There's a song called Three Egos that I did that with a long time ago that I've never gotten a great recording of, but I used to do it with my band Fantasy Square Garden, where it has that kind of like that while there's something else going on, another melody, and that was a real kind of moment of excitement because I was able to use something like that I learned, but a lot of it, it takes, writing in that way, you have to really focus and you have to really want to be singing when there's no one in the room, and that's the hardest part is there's no one to sing it for, there's no one to really do it for. You have to find that energy to do it.
I mean, when you're making all this kind of music that you've made over the years, regardless of genre, because you've made some stuff that's very, very, very Beatlesque, very much in that grand pop tradition, and then you've made stuff like I said with the group Le Bon, which is more like that new wave 80s dance tropes, but regardless of the sound or the personnel, it seems to me from what I'd say my somewhat limited, but not entirely limited access to your music, you're still going for you're going for that little nucleus of the pop song in there, regardless of how in the end it sort of gets dressed up, whatever genre it kind of leans toward, whether it's glam rock or a little heavier or not. It seems to always have this gem in the middle of just the classic pop melody idea. I'm looking, I think it's become crystallized sort of that there's a mission statement, what that is, and it's really, I'm looking to make someone happy in a little amount of time that I have. I'm not looking to necessarily change the world or anything like that, or to intellectualize the music so much that it becomes less accessible in an immediate sense. Although I want to do that, I do at some point. I do, but there is something about those simple songs. Going back to those simple songs. I mean, some of my favorites. Like Day After Day by Badfinger. I can see clearly now the rain is songs that are what they are just from hearing the word and the melody right there, and that simplicity and that feeling of everything's going to be okay, kind of don't cry, you got to go to work, whatever, you're in the car in the morning and you hate everything that's on the radio, but then that comes on and you're that little moment of happiness. It's a humble thing in a way too. It's become aggrandized so much. I mean, pop singers and there's like Paul McCartney, they're like gods, but they're just craftsmen. I mean, it's a working thing. You're working at it. You're like making a cabinet or making a clock. No, there is craft to it, and as we were talking about before, that if that idea of the constantly practicing, constantly writing songs, whether you use them or don't use them, just constantly writing and producing something for yourself, so that I always think of it as so when the time comes where you get that, that beautiful lightning in the bottle of inspiration and moment, you're able to work with it. Well, that was really my philosophy for years, and I've been doing it like that for years. Since I finished this last record, though, I did write a bunch of other tunes even afterwards because I thought I wanted to keep it going. But now I'm reaching a place I'm kind of all right, just relax now for a little while. I mean, just let life come to you a little bit. Don't go don't go deep sea fishing, and trying to catch every big fish. It's not going to happen. But if you stay open and realize, know now that I doing all that, I know. Sort of, if a song idea comes along, maybe you write it down or you think about it or something. But those special songs too, a lot of the time I found that they exist on a plane, like an archetypical plane, before even the notes and the lyrics come into being. It's like an idea, I'm trying to think of, some of them, some of the love songs with the concept of love, those can be the hardest ones because they don't necessarily have that kind of thing. But some things that, you even see in the title of a song, like one of the songs, Fred Berman, the guy, my good friend who
you've written a lot of music with him.
We've written some music together, and he's a great drummer, and he's in every band in the city, basically.
Good for him.
Yeah, I know. But he had the idea of a title, "Don't Say Goodbye Without Leaving." That's a great title because it exists.
George Jones title, right?
Exactly, and it exists in its own place, kind of even before you know what the song is or you've heard anything, and that kind of idea of a song existing in that place is a good place as any to start, even if you don't know how to write a song or something. You have to know what could be a good song.
Yeah. From listening to your music, it is abundantly clear that you're very well listened, and not just in a fan standpoint. Although I'm sure I know you're a fan of a lot of things, but people who write songs are listening, especially to the pop structure, with, I would say, a different ear, and we're not even a different ear, we're on the same ears, and pop music is designed to hit us all kind of in the same way, but with different intent, maybe? Like, your intent of listening is different when you hear this stuff?
I think it's, maybe it's, if you go and listening like a, blank slate, and then something that hits you, and something you react to, in one way you learn how to take that nucleus of what affected you and try and mirror it, or try and recreate something like that. Or if you're really stuck, you sit there and you dissect that one little thing, that one little those lines, and then you can see what makes this melody work, what makes this lyric and this melody work. If you really want to get into it like that, I mean, that takes away the inspiration, but inspiration is only part of that game too.
Well, yeah, because you have to have the context to work with it. You just writing music, you need to know what chords work together, and also what chords don't work together, and when to like put that stuff together that's not supposed to work together.
You can put any note in there. I mean, it's just timing, placement, any of that stuff. You just and you have to try things.
Yeah,
and you have to experiment, and
you gotta mess it up.
You got to mess it up sometimes. And sometimes you make a mistake, and that's where you get something,
Yeah.
But I don't know if there is such a thing as a songwriting expert, really. That's the thing. I mean, I can only tell you that from trial and error, from working, from trying to do it all the time, from the will to try and do it. It yields something. It yields songs eventually. And that's you really just have to do it. You just have to want to try and do it and try your best and. Try and create something beautiful,
I have to, I don't know if you do this, but I have to give that version of me, I have to let that version of me slide a little bit, because I'm just like, you hadn't done anything yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, the idea...
Or nothing had happened to you yet, really.
Yeah, the idea of love songs in that way, that's why they're so hard to write. Because, when you're just looking at a picture of a face, or you're looking for inspiration somewhere, or you're looking for some kind of inspiration, or you have this idea of puppy love or this infatuation with someone that you're trying to express, that's I guess love of a sort, but it's not the kind of love that really lasts or is giving. It's not like the kind of love that's like where you wake up with the same person every day, and you get to know them, and you really know who they are, faults and everything. I mean, and writing a song from that place. That's not done a lot in the pop world either. It's not about that kind of love. And that's a beautiful kind of love, And that's something, when you can get that, I mean, I could go back to the Badfinger, the Day After Day song. I'm obsessed with it. But I think it's like, that song, it's about being apart from someone and longing for them. But it says enough to not have to say, what it doesn't have to say. It says everything it has to say in those little words, and it's not overly clever. It's not trying to do a lot of wordplay.
Yeah.
But in that lyric and in that music, you feel love. You feel the love the guy's singing about, and that's what it's all about. With that kind of thing. I have to, when I start writing these days, I have to kind of go into a little bit of a trance.
Yeah.
But lately. I think for me, the way I've been doing it is either you think of an idea, or you think of a title or something first, some kind of idea, and then you just sing those words in as many different ways as you can, or you get it right the first time, and you're lucky, or whatever. But other things I've been doing, I've been singing it with a drum, with a kick drum and a hi-hat and an electric guitar.
Oh, nice!
And just doing like blues, like
and kind of
trancing stuff.
Try to feel the groove a little bit. Yeah, because you can get a lot more out of that than just playing the guitar.
You can really conjure up some things with that. I mean, and there are times when it really there's a spiritual essence to that you know is a different approach than the one I was speaking of before that, where you're just thinking of titles and thinking in a kind of a left brain verbal way about it, logical way. This other way is sort of like you're really like in an amorphous sea, and you're kind of like, you know, like when you're trying to imagine seeing out of the back of your head that idea, that place of consciousness comes into play a little more, where you're not even aware of what's going on, and then and the trick is then to catch it. If you get it, if you get something with the other part of the brain, catch the right brain with the left brain, and then put a name to it. But then it almost cheapens it then too.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it cheapens that moment of inspiration or that moment of whatever. No, I get it all the time when I'm just sitting playing guitar, and I have that little green box right there. There's a little looping station right there that I just sort of am able to sort of, maybe not in entirely the sense of the South Indian classical tradition, but like I do try and work off of, octave drones and things like that instead of chord progressions, because if you can just get one note going through, like I have enough of a musical brain to know it's like, well, if this is G, I know the things that I can go off over here. I know the things that are going to make it sound sad, and I know the things I can do with it that'll make it sound more upbeat, and I know where I can kind of find that mix in between.
What I find sometimes also is that I'm oversaturated. Like I'm kind of like I might, and this is even affecting my own writing and everything else. Is where
and listening. I don't
know what's good sometimes anymore.
I don't know what anything is at all.
Yeah,
I know what my friends do, and I know what my friends of friends do. And I have some people I'm sure you do too. I have some people in my life who are like my magnetic north, my Svengali tastemakers, who if they point me in a direction, I'm going to go in that direction almost blindly.
Sure.
Because they haven't let me down before. And I would hope that I'm that person to at least a couple of people in my life. But I don't know what anything is anymore. And so I don't know what you do, but for me writing and particularly listening, I have shut out almost entirely, with the exception of here and there, that sort of pop style format that you and I grew up with, like just rock tunes, pop tunes.
Yeah.
And I don't really engage with it much anymore. I don't dislike it.
No, I know.
And listening to your tunes actually over the last few days has been nice to kind of like bring me back. I'm like, oh yeah, I do like this, that power pop, big, super clean, hummable melody, and that's what it's intended to do.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of world music and a lot of music in languages that I will never know, and going deep into like the heart of like 70s, African guitar music and South American rock music and Japanese psychedelic stuff and like,
oh, it's all great.
Yeah. And by no means to like sound like, oh, well, this is what I'm into now. But like when I listen to that stuff, I'm like, and electronic music too, a lot of electronic music. So I'm like, I have no idea how they're doing this.
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. It's like when I listen to Aphex Twin, I'm just like, I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I know what samplers are, but like, I don't know how to do that. And it's great. I'm like, oh, this is what everyone else thinks when they listen to like, a Wilco tune. They're just like, I don't know how they're doing it. I unfortunately do.
Yeah, me too. No, that's exactly right.
It's terrible.
Yeah, well, trust me, man.
Not the Wilco tune, but the knowing how it's done.
Trust me. I am right there with you. That's why I'm getting more into that sort of trance blues type thing.
Yeah.
And when I say blues, I don't mean blues like 1/4/5 blues.
Yeah.
Like I mean riffs that are like almost like making that Indian music drone dance in a way, where you highlight the drone with a sort of a riff, and then you sing over top of that, and you can really go. Like, you ever heard of? You should check this out. Actually, Ganawa music.
Okay.
It's music from.
I'm down. Anything that I don't know.
It's music from North Africa.
Okay.
But it originally, I think it originally, people who make it originally sort of came from Ghana in West Africa, but they have this instrument. I think it's called a santir. but it's like this beautiful string, sort of low bass guitar kind of instrument, and the way it's played with these kind of sort of trance-like riffs, and then the singers go on top of it. It is fantastic.
Yeah,
and it's something that I've wanted to sort of listen to a lot and sort of take as a sort of a spiritual even kind of starting point for writing something.
I've been, and when I sit and play now more, I'm not trying to write. I mean, sometimes I just sit down and riff out like AC/DC type, big heavy blue, because that shit's fun too.
Man. It is.
But I'm in the same way where I'm just sort of like, I'm not trying to write something within 4 bars or 8 bars or whatever. I'm trying to sort of abandon the idea of a straight 4 meter or 3. I'm just trying to like,
totally.
what if the thing just kind of goes woo, and my guitar just sort of answers it. Have you listened? I mean, I'm sure you have. There's that trio from Houston.
Oh yeah,
Krungabin. I have no idea how to say it.
And
that's
them.
great too, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I can't get enough.
Yeah.
I want to just, kind of take the sort of unlearn the idea that I've ever heard the Beatles or the Rolling Stones in my life. Like, I'm trying to sort of take that temporarily out of my brain. I'm like, pretend you've never heard a big blues rock song.
Yeah.
Or that I'd never heard the Stooges or something like that.
Right.
And that's hard to do.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's, everything, with music, there is kind of a half-life, especially if you know music and you kind of know the language. Mm-hmm. You don't want to keep reading the same paragraph every day,
or the same, you don't want to stay in the same
You
tropes.
want to eat the same bowl of chicken soup every night for dinner. I mean, you want to have some different things. Humans want to explore and be more and everything, and so that's great. I mean, to break free of patterns is how new patterns can get created. I mean, for me right now, that's I think I might write one more album like that Sass stuff, just to have it, just to, because this one, we have it out there. People seem to be liking it. People are into
it. It's that. I thought of it as like you're kind of hitting that 70s era, but not. You're kind of getting all of it in there, or a little, or a lot more of it than most people would get when you just say 70s, because all the 70s really are is a period between 1970 and 1979, and whatever music occurred, within that amount of time.
Right.
But and I think the same thing for 60s or 80s or anything, any decade. I'm just like, well, yeah, there's that big stuff that you kind of nostalgically think of with a certain era, but for every bit of Bowie and the Rolling Stones, there's Fairport Convention and Nick Drake as well in there. So it's
that's, I mean, and the thing is that,
and those are all very different things, but they're all part of the same.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, that's another thing about sort of our generation caught in the middle of things, is that we were growing up like our older brothers, or even not my parents so much, but parents of my friends and everyone, they were into that stuff, that music, and like
there was Zeppelin and the Stones.
Yeah, I remember hearing Zeppelin at like camp or whatever, like hearing the counselors play it, and Queen and Jethro Tull,
the Who, and
so, but that was already in the 80s, the late 80s, whatever, and
it was still there. They were because classic rock radio was becoming a thing at that point as well. So you'd sort of made a genre that was just simply mining a hodgepodge of music that just simply existed between X year and X year, the rock and roll canon,
right,
so to speak.
So and that
we're very. I think at times our generation is more influenced by that than our parents.
Yeah. Because we were young when it was. I mean, we were really young when that stuff was becoming,
and it was everywhere.
I mean, the Eagles, all of those
Cheap Trick,
all of those
the Cars.
I want you to want. If I hear that one more time, I mean, and I know I love it. It's great, but it's also like, I guess what it is that stuff has been brewing in me since I was a kid, and it doesn't matter if it's in 2019 or 1975 or whatever it is. It's like that style of music is part of me. And it's a part that I wanted to kind of, express. But it was also, part of the, the making of this record was based on, an older project, the Davy Cope and the English Breakfast thing, where we had a similar kind of, British rock kind of Anglophile stuff going on. And that got us to make this new record. That got us backing to make this new record from someone who a fan of that record. So
great.
So that's one of the reasons why we were doing this. And it was kind of like, well, we need continuity. We gotta think of, all the songs that'll work on this kind of thing. Because I've been writing all kinds of things at different times. But this worked for this project just because we sort of were under that constraint of having to do that similar kind of thing. But I mean, I would, at this point, if I had the budget to do something else right now, I would love to combine the blues trance stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
With, it's probably impossible, but I'll tell you, with the music of like Debussy and Fauré, the French guys from the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Well, that's very airy stuff. At least when just stereotypically, what I think of Debussy is it's airy and a lot of legato things going on there. I used a music term.
Yeah, legato, very nice, very nice.
Yeah. I don't think that's as impossible as you think it is. You have to maybe the thing that bind it together is the air of it or something. Because when you think of,
I think the thing that would bind together would be someone with a budget saying, "I want you to make this," and then
that would bind it real quick.
That would bind it. Got it together. All right, here we go. Otherwise, it's too much sort of vague, kind of like in my own time, kind of.
Yeah. And how do you do this high-minded stuff in your own time in these small little snatches of time?
It feels indulgent unless it's really like inspired or real, And that's the hard. And it's also a headache. It's to think about. I mean, to try and think about that is, it's a beautiful idea, but to bring it down to earth, that's where the work is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like like man and wife, they have a kid. I mean, the woman does most of the work. It's like you're playing that, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like
in the actual birthing of the
birthing of the child. I mean, all that stuff. Like so the man might have this, a spark of an idea, but this life gets made over 9 months.
And it has nothing to do with him.
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, DNA, I guess, but that's the whole and that's the whole thing of it. It's like, with creation, like you can get that inspiration, but then you have to really work it into the world and make it a living, being thing.
Yep.
And that's a beautiful mission, but it's also, I guess you have to kind of choose your battles too, and kind of, be like, okay, let's take it easy. I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel, but I want to make something pretty. So that's where this pop stuff is coming from, probably too. So.
Well, I mean, what I like about it. I mean, I like a lot of things about it, but talking about before, you said your main point is to just very simplistically get at the inner, just sort of press that inner happy button in someone, in the listener. And I think that's all fine and good, and I think you accomplished that very well. But then the idea that you do have this sophisticated musical background, you do have more of the language for it, and to bring those things in, I always call it's tricking people into eating their vegetables a little bit. But I love that. To me, that's my favorite part of like really accomplished pop music, when you're thinking of the big guys and gals, like the big stuff, the high-minded stuff, like a Bowie or Prince, or Fleetwood Mac or something like that, where at its core there's the hummable, fish shaking in the arena, part of the music, which is great. That's, I mean, honestly, God, that's what pays for it.
Yeah.
But all these people and more are employing some very sophisticated artistry in making this happen. And I love that mix of both. It's the Aristotle idea of teaching and delighting. And that's not the first time I've said that on the show, and won't be the last.
Yeah.
Where, like, to me, I'm a postmodern guy at heart, but if you're really to break down what I think about art, I think I can almost boil it back down to Aristotle.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, it's got to make you happy, but you also have to get something from it. But the getting something from it is also a thing in there that can make you happy.
Sure.
I know that's a very high-minded way to think about it sometimes. It's something like pop music, but like I said, as much as I'm a postmodern, multiple readings, there's, multiple truths type of guy, it still goes back to the Greeks, man.
I mean, the Greeks had a lot of good things to say. They a lot of the the Platonic ideals and
exactly.
I mean, and that's the thing with music is also that you can write something, and then to get it recorded right and to get it performed right. So it is that's another art in itself.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, so you can, you can write something potentially great, and you might know it, but then, the whole process of it is one of it's a real labor of love. It's also heartbreaking,
Yeah.
I mean, it can really be hard. And now the hardest part of it, the real test of it seems for musicians is, on that sort of utopian technology front, everyone gets music for free now, which means the artist really gets very little for what he creates in terms of a material gain a lot of the time. Like the whole thing about Peter Frampton, getting millions of streams, got like $5,000 on Spotify, and it's like, in one argument for this is, that's totally wrong, and he should be getting what he's entitled to. At the same time, maybe it's hinting at a better kind of world where we have to sort of debase our own sort of needs for that kind of recognition and monetary, compensation.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's two very extreme sides of a pendulum. Where you got one side where millions of streams but no money, going to the other side with the excess of payment and middlemen of the 70s and 80s and 90s of rock music, of all, not just rock music, hip hop and R&B and pop and all that, the exorbitant amounts of money that were spent and handed around, and that I don't think this may or may not be non-pop. I don't think music is any better or worse at any given time, regardless of the money.
No.
But the quality of the music hasn't changed, I don't think, or the potential quality of the music.
The potential quality, I would say that's true.
Yeah.
I would say the making money, ideally, ideally it would be great. I mean, I often imagine, like, if I were to make millions of dollars with music or whatever, like what that would be like. And I'd like to think that, the discipline of writing music and the discipline of trying to connect with people could help, me spend some of that money in a good way,
Yeah.
That's sort of my argument,
to bring people along or to...
Yeah, to help, or to plant trees. Yeah. Or plant a billion trees in Pennsylvania or something like that.
That's true, yeah. Doing with some of these, like hip-hop moguls who make more money, who turn around and fund an entire school district in wherever it is what hard life neighborhood that they came from. Or
Absolutely.
Something like that.
That's exactly. That's the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, why else?
Why else have the money?
Why else have the money? Why else?
I mean, there are other people who give you a whole lot of other answers about that, but
that's true. I guess we could get into a whole.
No. But I get that right there. That if given the opportunity to actually reap a larger reward off of an already, sort of altruistic minded thing, which is to make a song to make someone happy, you would hope that the money that would come from that would also
like a fractal growing out. The song itself is generous.
Yeah.
The artist maybe is given some compensation, and then that becomes generous too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, these are great life, crummy job.
That's right. I think that's good. I think that's a perfect full circle right there. Right. You feel good about it?
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, I might have said a couple things in there that I didn't know what I was talking about.
No, I do it all the time. It's my show. That's what the editing process is for.
Right.
Dave, thanks so much for coming over, man.
Thank you.
We'll be together till the end of time. 25
Well, that's the show for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you, Dave Cope, for coming over, for talking, for being on the show. He's a prolific songwriter and a great performer. Unfortunately, on the night that he came over, he wasn't feeling the greatest voice-wise, so he didn't want to perform. I'm definitely going to cap off this show with a track from the Dave Cope and the Sass record, which is really, really outstanding. You can check that out at sasskicksass.com. Check out davecope.bandcamp.com for all the other stuff. There's a bunch of it. You're going to like all of it, some of it. You're going to like it. I promise. Thank you, Dave, for being on the show. And that's going to do it. Happy birthday to me. happy birthday to you if it's your birthday today. Happy birthday, Trey Anastasio, frontman of the band Fish. It's his birthday today as well. I know you really wanted that information. Yeah, go to 25o'clockpod.com. Do it. Not just because it's my birthday. Just do it in general. Because it's my birthday, maybe. Thank you for joining me on the show. Thank you for hanging out for 5 years, for however many years you've been hanging out and listening to the show. It's a lot. Thanks for being here. Going to leave you with a song from Dave Cope and the Sass. A song called Living in the Middle from their LP. Get it at sasskickass.com or anywhere else that you get music digitally. This is 25 o'clock. I'm Dan Drago. Until next time, take care of yourselves.